Hey guys, on this episode I'll be taking you through the hike from Raven Lodge to Forbidden Plateau. For more hiking videos like this, be sure to subscribe and join the I'd Rather Be Hiking Facebook group. The hike begins at the top of Mount Washington. When you see the ski hill, continue past it further up the mountain to Raven Lodge. The lodge itself is off to the right of the start of the hike, but this big sign here is the starting point. Here we see the map. The Raven Lodge is in the top right. Forbidden Plateau is so far away it isn't even on this map. For the first night, we'll be sleeping at McKenzie Lake, not to be confused with Helen Mackenzie Lake, which isn't that far from the start. The hike begins with these boardwalks and small patches of rock and dirt. You'll be greeted by open meadows, rolling mountains, and evergreen forests. As the boardwalks end, the uphill begins. After some time climbing and weaving through the forest, you'll pass by Battleship Lake, which is where you can see the ski hill in the background. Signposts along the trail keep you on track. Here you'll get your first glimpse of the remaining almost 19 kilometers of this hike. I should note, with getting a little off trail, some sightseeing and a visit to Drabble Lakes, this entire journey was about 30 kilometers over the 2 days I hiked it. Making your way to Mount Croton, you'll start to see numerous tarns, or small mountain lakes, and lush meadows. The trail goes up and down over multiple humps along skinny dirt trails with sections of roots and rocks. The next step is Croton Lake, which is often the endpoint of many campers. This is a good couple-hour hike with a fantastic place to camp. There are flat wooden pads to put your tent on, a beautiful lake to swim in, and Croton Mountain that towers above. Recently built, a wooden yurt is up at the lake, which is a common place for people to cook and prepare food. After a 30-minute swim, we were back on the trail heading deep into the backcountry. You get a nice view of Mount Croton as you head up the hill that leads away from it. After a good hour, you'll come to a turning point where you need to make a left towards Panther Lake. There are numerous tarns and mountains along this trail that is apparently unmaintained but in very good condition. Once you come upon Panther Lake, make sure you follow the trail to the left of it. This is the correct trail to lead up to Johnston Lake and over to McKenzie Lake for camp. If you follow the trail to the right of Panther Lake, like we did, you'll end up off in the wrong direction, which we realized halfway along the lake and turned back and found a spot to jump across a skinny section. The next section is going to be grueling to get to McKenzie Lake if you aren't a seasoned backpacker. A good climb to the top where Johnston Lake is will tire you out, but as you descend into the valley on the other side, there's a 100-foot plus vertical cliff in the forest, which is a rewarding sight to see. Just before this cliff lookout spot, there are campsites if you can't make it to McKenzie Lake, but there is nothing to see around there except some murky water with mosquitoes. The trail will seem to go on forever as it snakes through the forest, but you'll get a view of the valley and Mount Albert Edward. To be honest, I can't remember where this spot is, but it's marked on the trail. After the path winds up and back down into dense forest, and finally back up again, you'll see a green meadow that'll signal that you've made it to the lake. On the far side of the meadow, with a few minutes walk through the trees, you'll come to the first camping spot. If you head deep into the woods, 2 minutes more along the trail, you'll see the other half of the lake with more camping spots. But we were getting attacked by so many mosquitoes at the end of July when we did this hike that we just set up tents and jumped inside to have a break from them. The next morning, it was time to head to Drabble Lakes before finishing off the hike. This isn't required, but it's such a nice place you don't want to skip it. The trail to Drabble Lakes becomes more steep with more ups and downs that'll burn away at your likely already sore legs. You'll see a signpost for Drabble Lakes that heads left off the main path. The path is pretty short, but it's all up. The 3 lakes are on top of a plateau with Mount Drabble above them. The plan was to swim, hike up Mount Drabble with no bag, and then head out. But we were being pressed for time and energy, so we just had an extended swim in the brisk but refreshing water. Make sure to skip the first 2 lakes and swim in the big one at Mount Drabble, the one you see here. The first 2 lakes are not very deep and don't really have any moving water. Back on the trail, this last and grueling section is easily the hardest part of the hike, which I guess is why some people do this hike in the opposite direction. There are numerous crossings of creeks across logs, steep sections, and a switchback from hell that'll make you question if you'd rather just live in the forest versus continuing on. There are easily 10 huge logs you need to climb over or under, which will further exhaust the legs. The steep forest view is nice, and at the top you'll see a fork in the path to Mount Beecher. If you have a couple extra hours, you can go do that one too. The gradual uphill relentless path seems to never end. At this point near the top of the peak, there's very little water except a couple almost dried up pools with the murkiest, nastiest water you've ever seen. This is where I made a critical mistake. I drank all of my water, 2 liters of it, getting up this mountain, and placed my bets on finding a better water source. Turns out this murky water pool was the last one. As you head down the dry orange-colored dirt, you're about 1.5 hours from the parking lot. If it's a scorching 30 degrees outside like it was for us, you'll get melted right into the mountain if you don't have protection. I personally hike with a tacky gardening hat that has UV protected material and UV arm sleeves so I don't have to bring sunscreen. I'll link both of these below if you want to check them out. As the trail rounds off and starts to go downhill at a much greater degree, which is past the old ski lift, you'll know you're about 45 minutes from the parking lot. At this point, suffering from extreme dehydration and unable to stop in fear I won't be able to get up again, I ended up 10 minutes ahead of the group. The one and only tree with shade I found in the past hour of hiking was my sign to drop my bag and pray I find a miracle inside it. After scouring my bag for liquid or food containing liquid, like a blessing from the heavens, I remembered my wet swim trunks in my bag. I wrung them out quite well, but they were still wet, which I wrapped them around my neck. This dropped my temperature significantly, and luckily some friends we met up with had water in their car once we made it to the parking lot. The final downhill of this trail is horrible, full of loose rock, dry as a bone, but offers a few rare glimpses out across Comox in the Pacific Ocean. The real magic of this hike is in the middle sections around Panther Lake, Croteau, and Drabo Lakes. This is a tough 2-day backpacking trip for the average person. For a seasoned hiker, it'll be a good hike. Hopefully you enjoyed this trek from Raven Lodge to Forbidden Plateau. If you're planning on doing this hike, make sure to stock up on water, maybe bring a life straw and a mosquito net depending on the type of year. Making this video required me to take an extra 10 pounds of camera equipment, so I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe, join the I'd Rather Be Hiking Facebook group, and have a great day.